Okay, so today on This and That, we're going to be taking a look at an easy, foolproof pizza dough recipe. I've used this recipe hundreds of times, and it's worked really well for me. I thought I'd share it along with you. For this dough, you really only need a few simple ingredients, one of which is flour. There's a lot of talk about flour and what to use, you know, triple O and all this other stuff, and really what they're looking at is the protein content in flour. Honestly, you can get away with AP. That's what I use most of the time. It works out fine. Yeast is kind of important. This one's an instant dry active yeast by Fleischmann's. You can get this, I think I get this at Sam's Club or Costco, a 2-pack for like $5. A scale is very important, a measuring cup for some water, obviously a bowl to mix it in, and then also kosher salt is what I use. So it's really a basic 4 ingredients: salt, yeast, flour, and water. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start. But the first thing you need to do is measure out the flour. So you get a scale, a digital scale like so, turn it on. And the big thing you want to understand here is that flour, everything is based off of the flour. The ratios are based off of the flour. I have 3 pounds in here. I'll do that by weight on the standard side. And then we're going to switch to metric when we measure out the water. I'll tell you why I do that. All right, so from here, you want to add in the other couple of ingredients that you need, like salt and yeast. Now, the nice thing about the active yeast is that you don't have to proof it first, which I really like. You can use other yeast, that's fine. This one's been tried and true for me. And again, you don't have to proof it, which means you can just add it right to the flour. So how I typically start this, I switch over into metric now. So you'll see 3 pounds, 8 ounces converted over to 1,589 grams. Okay. So I always add, for something like this, I would add between 30 and 40 grams of kosher salt. So you just add it right on in there. It is true that you don't want the yeast to come into direct contact with the salt. Salt kills yeast, so they're going to, counteract each other really, or it's going to counteract the yeast, and the yeast is obviously what is going to make the dough rise. So I add in the salt like so, and then I just stir it up in the flour a little bit. And then for this, I'm going to add about anywhere from 8 to 10 grams of yeast, which really that's about 2 nickels worth of yeast. This doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually quite a bit of yeast. And the reason I do that is because I like to make my dough the day of. You can always make the dough the night before, even days ahead, and people do that, and I've done that as well. But I'm having pizza tonight, and I like to just kind of whip up a quick dough, and that's why I really like this recipe, because you don't have to wait overnight. A lot of times, pizza recipes will say, put it in the fridge overnight, put it in the fridge overnight. And you can certainly do that here, but really, in terms of I want a pizza here in a couple hours, this is how you do it. Okay, so now, and just keep it all adding up. So I've got 1628, and I'll go to 1636. That's 8 grams. There we go, 39, that's 11 grams. That's okay. It's not gonna hurt you that way. And then you stir that in. Okay, so we're at 1639, call it 1640 grams of flour, yeast, and salt. This would be the constant, so if you treat this as 100%, you would hydrate against it. So that's how things work in baking and doughs and whatever. And this is probably the trickiest part about it, is that you want to have the correct hydration, the correct amount of water in here in order to make the dough do what you want it to do. Too little water, and the dough will be way too tough, and it won't develop correctly, and you certainly won't get any spring or rise when you throw it in the oven. Too much water, too much hydration, then it's just way too sticky and hard to work with, and that becomes a problem as well. And I think this is where a lot of people that make pizza doughs screw up. They don't really measure the hydration percentage going in, and that is probably the biggest variable that you can get when making pizzas. So I know I'm going to use 70, right around 70. So we're at 1640 grams, so that would put us at 1120 grams of water to add to it. So you add 1120 grams of water to this, so I can go ahead and zero this out. So I know that when I get to 1120, I'm good. And when 1120 grams go in here, it will be 70% hydration. And the nice part is you can add flour then at that point if it's a little sticky as you work the dough. So that way, that hydration will even drop a couple percent, and it turns out to be a perfect pizza every time. So hang on, we'll add some water. Well, 1120, perfect, right on the nose. Okay, so now all you do from here, you can take it off the scale, and you just want to mix it up. Okay, the dough is mixed. Now all you need to do is really let it set for about 15 minutes, 10, 20, 15, 30, anywhere in there. And what this is doing is it's allowing all the water to actually bind with the flour. And this process is called auto-release. And it's pretty critical because as the water starts to hydrate all the flour fully, you know that you've got a good saturation of all the ingredients through there, right? After 15, 20 minutes of it sitting, then you knead it. But don't worry, I'm gonna fast forward because, you know, it's 10 minutes or so of me just kneading this dough. I do have a pile of flour here on the side because it is, at 70%, it is quite sticky. So this is where I talked about where you can add some of that flour back in. This works well for me. So get some flour on your hands here. Go ahead and just kind of grab at it, pull it out of the bowl, put it out right in front of you. Just like so. Like I said, it's gonna be a little sticky at first, that's okay. I just kind of put flour on it, flip it over, and then start kneading it. Okay, and voila, through the magic of editing, that 10 minutes of kneading the dough got chopped down to like 20 seconds maybe, I don't know. But here's what you're left with at the end. It's definitely, you can tell it's already kind of a lot smoother. It's staying together a lot easier. It's not sticking nearly as much to hands. So at this point, here's the thing. Here's the bowl that it came in right here. All I'm gonna do, actually here's the bowl that came in right here. All I'm gonna do is throw the dough right back in, like so, and let it rise. I'm gonna cover it with a layer of saran wrap, not on the dough, but over the dough. I'm not adding any oil whatsoever to the dough. If you do that, the oil binds with the gluten and protein structures in the dough, and it will essentially make a more uniform bread-like crust, almost like a brioche bun or something like that. So, because oil is a fat, and that's what fat does when it binds with the glutens and the proteins in the flour. So a couple hours later, I'll come back. This should have doubled in size, and you punch it down and you kind of shape it out into some doughs, and we'll go from there. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours, and you can see now this has tripled in size. Big air pockets, air bubbles have formed in the dough, and I'll peel this off. The saran wrap may stick a little bit. No, it came off pretty well. All right, so once you do that, just go ahead and you can pull the dough out of here and put it on a work surface. You can lightly flour it if you want, so you have some flour over here. That's fine. Pull it out over here, and once you get it lightly floured, this is the point where you can kind of form and shape it into the doughs. You want to do like a bench rest with it. They call it bench rest. So, but it's a big blob of dough currently. So you want to get it set up into sections. So if you have a good sharp knife, you can cut it. This one I'll probably cut into thirds at least, and you shape them in. Now there's a couple different ways you can make the dough. All right, once you get into those sections, like I said, you can kind of take it and pinch it off on your hand. Go grab my flour. All right, then you tuck the sides in a little bit like this. Roll it on the work surface. It's kind of going to be kind of sticky and tacky, and you're going to get a dough. Now, it depends on what you're doing. These are going to go on the outside wood-fired pizza oven, so that's going to be a high temperature, which you kind of honestly want a smaller dough. when we redid our kitchen, I had these drawers made for a pull-out pantry that we had. Well, it wasn't the right size, but I ended up saving this because this is kind of like a dough proofing box, essentially. So I put some things to Hannah there, put some flour on the bottom, and sprinkle a little bit more. Come over here. Very nice. So what you can do is, this works out handy for this. So sprinkle some flour on the bottom, put your doughs in here. So I put these cups in here like so, kind of, you know, here and there. And then I'm going to set a bath towel on top of this. And what that will do is it'll allow the towel to ride on top of the cups and not touch the dough, and then allow the doughs to kind of to rise up in between. So that's really about it for this. And then what I do, I mean, I'll take it out and head outside here in a moment. But this takes about 20-30 minutes, and these will be pretty workable. It's nice to let them rest for a little bit. I actually had these, thank you. I actually had these in the fridge because the dough was rising a little quicker than I thought, because summertime it always does. So anyway, you just take a towel, this is a clean towel, believe it or not, and then wrap it on top, so that way it doesn't get too much air into it and it does dry out. Anyway, hopefully this helps, and thanks for watching. And if you liked it, please hit like and subscribe. That would mean a lot. We'll keep going here in the future with new and exciting stuff. I know. I don't know what's even on there. I don't think they can see you. You gotta put your hands over here. Okay. There you go. All right. All right. Thank you.